Hello everyone, good morning. Welcome to the day 2 of the 16th edition of NASCOM DSA Annual Information Security Summit. I hope you all have a great on the day 1 of the AISS. Welcome to the second workshop welcome to the first workshop of the day 2 we have on intelligencing your AppSec program, building, orchestration and correlation. The workshop is basically intent to give a focus on the building your AppSec program. Also, the key learning which we will be receiving from the workshop are like a new approach to optimize and orchestrate application security program. Also, such like remediation focus on business risk, harnessing the power of machine learning to centralize, report, and prioritize AppSec finding. AppSec enable developer give developer the tools they need to secure code as fast as they write it and modular AST service. Particular for this workshop, I would like to invite Mr. Pawan Kumar Bogarapu, Senior Sales Engineer, Synopsys. Welcome, Mr. Pawan.
Hey, thank you very much, Ishan. Good morning to everyone. Thank you.
Yeah. I would like to welcome Mr. Vinayak Godse, Senior Vice President, Data Security Council of India.
Yeah.
Welcome, Vinayak.
Thank you, Ishan, and welcome you all for the second day of 16th edition of AISS Annual Information Security Summit. So you all know that the summit happens in month of December, and we, in a way, culminate the discussion which happened in the overall years in cybersecurity and privacy space. And we all know in last 4 or 5 years of time we had been talking quite significantly about the digitization and uh, digitization which is being devised to give better experience to consumer, which is devised to improve the productivity, and which is devised to find the opportunities basically. And each of the organization, and be it in a very advanced segment like a technology or BFSI, or be it now very segment which is not discussed in the context of the technology transformation like a health sector or a oil energy sector, everybody is now planning for digitization. And key part of digitization basically is to build a system and application, would be application development of the application would be the key thing basically that organization must be are doing basically. And the volume and space and velocity and complexity of the development of the application is significantly rising, and there are millions of people across globe which have been developing the application. Every organization which is on a very significant journey of digitization had been building a lot of application. More importantly, for each of the application, a lot of builds which have been pushed every day all across basically. So this volume velocity of development of application and the deployment, also the time required to deploy that application and overall cycle of development application is also getting squeezed quite significantly. There are many tools and technology which are helping you to create this application development ecosystem basically. Applications are being developed all across the globe basically. So I had been one of the inaugural of one of the center of excellence in Pune, where that particular organization has only came to Pune to create a development ecosystem there, so that it can suffice the space of development that is required for the business purposes basically. And then the way the digitization is happening, the way the millions and billions of people are joining to digitization role, and be it like a very commercial purpose and even for the inclusion purpose from the government side, there's also a lot of things which are coming online basically. So while application security had been discussed in the various different contexts, but now because of these kind of challenges and this kind of volume and velocity and complexity, basically, a lot of those ideas basically security has taught us basically. So, for example, orchestration, we have talked until now in the context of a enterprise security system basically. So we would be building sim solution, and on top of that, the security orchestration automation had been built until now, and those concepts we have been trying to understand, trying to comprehend, probably trying to deploy as well basically. But why we need to think about application, why this concept needs to be manifestation to the level of application, is the area that we'll be exploring in this particular discussion, and with the help of the Pawan here. And thank you, Pawan and Synopsis, for helping us setting up this particular interaction. So this particular interaction is going deep down to the application security program, but this program, how it is getting shaped with engineering ideas basically, which are already evolved in different contexts, but how we can bring those ideas basically at application level, and why we need to bring those ideas at application level. So we like to understand, evaluate those kind of ideas basically from the context of application security, and how you build a program on top of it basically. So that's something we'll be exploring with the help of Pawan here. So this is a 2 hour interaction. So we'll go deep down. Pawan will take us at a very different level of a discussion, and we will invite participants here to put your questions in the chat window here. So I'll picking them up, and for making this discussion more as a dialogue based or interaction based rather than we two just talking to you basically. So feel free to put whatever your questions, whatever your views and comments are, and we'll try to reflect on those comments and questions as well, try to understand your views and perspective on this particular thing. So with this context, over to you, Pawan, and I will keep bugging you some of the slides. Basically, I will keep coming back to you. So there will be some slides we like you to spend more time, basically, and also pick up some of those kind of comments and observations from the participants. You are on mute, I
Yeah,
probably,
yeah.
Pawan.
Yes. Thank you very much, Vinayak. This is very helpful to give in a context how exactly the current market trends are there, how the orchestration and the correlation works and all those things. Thank you very much for giving a quick overview about that. Okay, let me share my screen. Okay, just confirm me where everybody is able to see my screen. I hope everyone is able to see my screen.
Yeah, 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 Pawan.
Yep. Thank you very much, Vinayak, for giving the introduction about what exactly we are going to cover. Good morning to everyone. Good morning to all. Thank you for attending this masterclass session. Today we'll talk about the intelligencing your AppSec program, how you could able to build orchestration and the correlation. Before that, right, like I would like to quickly tell you if you have any specific question, right, like as Vinayak had mentioned, you can very well pass that question in a question and answer section. We will take those questions and then move forward. If there is any specific key question comes during the discussion, right, we'll have a deep dive and then go forward with that. Okay. Now let me just do that. To start with the agenda, right, we will talk more about the quick introduction, what exactly we are trying to address, what type of challenges we have in that, and then you look after a specific technology called application security orchestration and correlation, how what type of challenges solve this SOC solves. With those challenges, how the Synopsys Kodiak solution will improve the efficiency across the SDLC or the DevSecOps. And then finally, we have like a deep dive workshop, as Vinayak had mentioned, right? As an engineering standpoint of view, or in a CISO point of view, as a VP point of view, right? What type of key things you look after as part of an engineering activities? We'll go deep dive into those activities. Okay, how do we see the current trend of in a software? As Vinayak had clearly mentioned, if you look after any software which has been developed currently, right, it's more complex. The reason is like if you look maybe 15 years back, right, all those applications are monolithic applications. When I say monolithic applications, right, it's a single application where they use either waterfall model or an agile model and deploy very, very slowly. But those software has been changed. Now everything has been microservices and serverless. It's like those builds will happen so fast, where we have seen some of our customers where they deliver tens, hundreds, thousands of builds each and every day. Now, when you look, these type of builds are happening, right? Your deployment also should be much, much faster. If you look right, like the earlier, right, like they were deploying as part of a single server, the way very, very slow. But now the deployment also had been changed, where The customers are using the containers, they're using the cloud infrastructure, they're deploying as an IoT devices. That's where the modern complex software has been growing with us. Now, with this modern complex software, what type of things will need to see over here? With that, right, like let me give in a quick a case studies how the each and every organization is working on this modern software. As I mentioned, right, the modern software is more complex going forward. Now it's like it's a little bit okay, but going forward it's more rapid. Now if you look about the Facebook, right, Facebook has almost like 50 to 60,000 Android builds each day. You think about a organization is delivering almost like 50,000 to 60,000. What type of infrastructure, what type of AppSec activities, what type of DevSecOps pipeline is being there? We need to consider all those things to take it forward, have a secure software. Now let's look at the Amazon also. Like each and every second, there is a new software has been deployed. That's where it has been done for Amazon as well. Now, if you see the Etsy, Etsy is still in a e-learning, e-commerce based company. Oh, still they are in a monolithic application. But if you see the what they are doing, a single monolithic application has been deployed almost 60 times a day. Maybe they convert in future to the monolithic application to the microservices. We might need to see that, but it's still a single application delivered 60 times is a day is also pretty huge. Now if you look, everyone uses the Netflix, where we have seen the OTT platform, how it has been evolved. You see over here, like almost like 100 releases each and every day. Now, when you have all these releases, right, I can very well consider one activity which is very, very important is the speed. When you have this speed, right, how do we test? How do we manage the risk? How do we fix all these problems if it comes? This is the main concern. Now, in those aspects, right, let's look into the organizations like where we check within a poll with internal customers and then figured out, okay, how many individual AppSec tool has been used, whatever they currently are using. We got almost like 378 response from each and every organization, multiple responses. Almost like 8% of the customers mentioned we use 1 to 5 AppSec tools as part of my SDLC, as part of my DevSecOps. Now, 21% users like 6 to 10, it's good, but mostly almost all like 43% of customers use 11 to 20. It's pretty good. Like when you have like deliver your application faster and secure, you need to use these type of solutions to deliver secure software. But overall, right, there are certain organizations which use almost like more 25 to 50 as well. Okay, that's pretty huge, like where maybe they are using like tons of AppSec tools, but there are still few people who don't know also what type of AppSec tool we are using as part of my AppSec activities, as part of my DevSecOps also. Now with all those activities, right, like let's look into like what type of AppSec tools will be used as an organization. As I mentioned, right, like we have seen 1 to 5, 5 to 10, and then 10 to 20, and then these many, right? What type of AppSec tools uses as part of an activity? Customer use multiple AppSec tools. Those technology might be like a static application security testing. There might be like a dynamic application security testing, software composition analysis, interactive application security testing, okay, and then pen testing, and then they do the like vulnerability analysis, network analysis. With all those considering of all these tools, right, you increase each and every activity much grower also, like we will add more tools going forward as well. Now with this, how would you able to manage these things? How would you able to test all these activities, make sure you're fixing all the vulnerabilities, either it's a proprietary, either it's a open source? How do you manage these things? Now with this, right, like I would like to quickly give you how the AppSec team, the development team, is not able to keep the pace with the DevOps team. The reason is pretty simple, where we have seen organizations are like releasing hundreds, thousands of builds each and every day, where the developer is like doing a lot of commits, and they see like a lot of feature requests, a lot of enhancement requests, a lot of things are there. But with those activities where the developer does, the AppSec team is not able to carry forward. They are not much fast because they have a backlogs. They don't know what to look after. They don't know what type of critical issues need to look, what type of security vulnerabilities need to be fixed. They're not aware. It's not. We don't have much time on that. And eventually, the developers and then the deployment teams can't wait to release your production at your customers, at your clients, because the release cycle is faster. Now, as you can't wait to fix all the defects, eventually we would able to deliver unsecure software. Now, once you have delivered unsecure software, it might come to a cyber attack. Those cyber attack might be like Equifax or a Heartbleed, or recently for the Log4j. Those type of cyber attacks might come into picture. Now, eventually, from starting to end, if we can't able to like cope up what exactly doing by development team AppSec activities, we are going to have a concern. That concern is like very huge. We know like, okay, what happened with the Equifax, like, okay, what type of money has been involved to take care of the infrastructure, to compliance and all those things, right? It's huge. Now let me give you a quick case study. How do we do that?
Pawan,
Okay,
can you just hide that bar which is coming at the bottom? There's a hide.
is this the one?
So there is a hide link, right? You have to just click that and it will get hide.
Sorry, Vinayak, I'm not able to see the
No,
hide
no,
one.
that bar, if there is a blue button, right? Near blue there is hide which is written, right, on that bar.
Is this the one you're talking? Which
Ah,
I'm just like,
yeah. So
okay.
there is hide, right, at the
Oh,
right
yeah.
side.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you very much, Vinayak. Yes. Okay. Now let me look into this, a quick case study about like, okay, uh, if you see, right, like about these cyber attacks and the data breaches, let's look at the Poneman study in 2021. What they did that? Uh, the average cost of any data breach happened in 2021 is almost like $4.24 million. That's an average cost. It's not a total cost. But compared to 2020, this is almost like 10% increase. I think in 2020 it was almost like $3.86 million. But overall, if you see like what we are going to expect by end of the 2021, it's almost like 6 trillion US dollar. Now, our main key point is like, okay, instead of getting into cyber attack and data breach, invest in an AppSec tool where you could be able to minimize all these cyber attacks and data breach. That's our main key focus. Okay, now let's look at like what SOC is. How did this word come? Okay, is there any word like, okay, uh, how this word has been evolved, like, okay, before that what has been there? We'll quickly look into that. SOC stands for like application security, orchestration, and correlation. You could able to notice the SOC word, which is in a this term has come from the Gartner. We all know the Gartner is the leader, like where they look after multiple activities. It's not only the AppSec in the entire, either it's in a security, either it's in a banking domain, either it's in a infrastructure, it's in a retail domain. Each and every activity Gartner manages that. In 2019, Gartner had released a report like a hype cycle for application security. In those report, right, they clearly mentioned a application security orchestration and correlation. The customers are like figuring out, okay, what exactly is this? What does this mean? SOC does. what value it brings to the development team, what value it brings to the management, the security consultants. Before that itself, like, okay, our solution, the CodeDX solution, where we collaborated with the US governments and we build these activities. But like with the naming of ASOC, like our solution had penetrated so fast in multiple organizations as well. Now let's look into what exactly ASOC is. Okay, the main activities for SOK is like, okay, there are three primary benefits as part of your DevOps process. Either it's in a CI/CD pipeline or either it's in a DevSecOps process, right? What need to be taken care of? The first benefit you will see as in a management perspective, as part of your organization perspective, right? The efficiency. When we say the efficiency, as I had shown you, right, like each and every organization use multiple AppSec tools. They might use like 20 tools, but as a SOC tool, I should have all the data at single place. How do I get that data? If you see an SOC tool, it should consider this benefit. If you don't see the benefit from any SOC tool, right, it does not serve the purpose of SOC. That's where, if you're looking at SOC, make sure all the data is available over here itself. The second one is the scalability. When we say the scalability, right, as I mentioned, right, like you have like hundreds of applications, use tens of application security tools. When I look any activity, either it's in a SaaS or in a DaaS or an IaaS, you should have a consistency. When I say consistency, right, like, okay, hey, Pawan, like, okay, I have seen this problem over here. The next day, what happens? Those consistency will be there, and you could able to onboard hundreds, thousands of application to a SOC solution. The third one is the accountability. Now, this is very, very important to the management, either it's in a CX level or in a VP level or in a director level, right? They always ask about the accountability. When I say the accountability, right, as an individual, as an organization perspective, right, you always ask about like what what the software has been tested for this application. If we don't able to give the answer to your higher management, it's a challenge for that. For example, right, like, okay, maybe like my management will ask, hey, Pavan, could you just tell me, I have an application one and application two, could you just tell me like what type of software has been tested on that? If I don't give that answer, that's a block. Now, as a tool need to provide the data to your organization. That's the first accountability. The second one is the what type of issues were found as part of the testing. When I say the issues, right, those type of issues might come from your proprietary source code, your open source code, your network vulnerability analysis. All those things need to be there in a single SOC itself. Now, the last one, which is very, very important and everyone look after, is what the defects had been fixed or not. When I say the defects had been fixed or not, right? Like, okay, yes, Pavan, like, okay, there are certain lot of defects are there, but what we are doing, are we fixing these vulnerabilities? Are we fixing these critical vulnerabilities? That data points need to be given for an SOC solution. Without that, it is very, very challenge to name it as a SOC solution. Okay.
So, Pawan, when we say uh, one place for all data, means you are saying that all those information is important for the application security would be brought together at one place, and not only the current information, all those historical information can also be is also brought together, so that you have a complete view about what had happened in terms of application security and what is happening now actually in terms of. So is that understanding correct?
Yes, Vinayak. Yes, absolutely. Your understanding is correct. Because as an activity, as an AppSec activity, you might be running multiple solutions, but as an SOC solution, everything should be at one place. I should not go to like tens, 20s of application to find out what is this vulnerability, where
Yeah.
this defect has been fixed, when is this being introduced. You should not go forward for that. With SOC, you will get these benefits, Vinayak.
Okay.
Thank you, Vinayak. Thanks. Nice question. Okay, now to this questions, Vinayak, like okay, to continuous this, like okay, what
Mm.
qualifies as an SOC tool? Whatever we
Yeah.
discussed, right? You have seen, like you already got this point. If you see over here, right, it should integrate with all the wide range of commercial AppSec testing tools. When I say commercial AppSec tools, right, like I'm sure almost of all the organizations, right, like what I've worked in last 15 years, right, each and every organization will use 5+ AppSec tools. I have seen some of our customers use 10+ AppSec tools. Now, when you have this all the commercial tools at one place, that's the first one. And then second qualification should be like you should able to correlate between these AppSec tools. When I say correlation, right, I had found one SQL injection from SAST. I had found the SQL injection from DAST. I had found the SQL injection from IAST. Those are all the individual point solution. Once I integrate everything in a single platform, I should see the correlation. Hey, Pavan, this finding, the SQL injection has been detected from all the solution. That way we do the correlation. The third one, it must provide the orchestration capabilities. When I say the orchestration capability is right, it should run the specific solution at this time. That way a SOC tool need to be qualified as part of the Gartner had mentioned. It's not about like synopsis. Gartner had seen, okay, and any SOC tool, right? They should have these, and then they introduced in 2021. They introduced something called a policy as code. Okay, that's where the 2021 also the Gartner had introduced this. That's all the SOC tool need to be qualified.
So let me interject here, Pawan.
Yes,
So
please.
the concept of orchestration, right? So
Yeah,
cons- the concept basically talks about anything which could create larger ramification for the security, right? And getting hold of that thing which could create larger ramification for security, and make sure that you have those processes and policies and governance. So you identify that issue, you get hold of that, and make sure that you manage that so that it will not create the ramification basically. So each
absolutely.
and every small issue that could create larger ramifications, so orchestration is a process to make sure that you handle those issues which will create larger ramification basically.
Absolutely. That is true.
Yeah.
That's where the intent is.
Yeah. And then another question here is the so why we are saying only commercial, because there are a lot of open source tool also in the market for application security.
Yes, yes. It's a valid question. It's a valid question. Okay. Yes. You have like a lot of open source tools also. You could very well bring those open source tool results with SOC as well. But as like I was talking as like a lot of customers use the commercial application. That's why I took that example.
Okay.
As I mentioned, you could very well bring the open source tools also into SOC. That's like I will cover as part of my masterclass workshop as well. There is a small activity will be there where you could able to see Vinayak.
Sure. Thank you.
Okay. Now we have seen like okay what a SOC must have and what type of how it qualifies as an SOC tool. But let's look into like what type of challenges a SOC solves. This is very important when you look uh, how it solves my problem. When I say right, like okay, as an organization, how it solves. Okay, this is key things. where like most of the customers resonate what I'm talking. Maybe right, like you might see slight difference, but overall we have seen this information. Let's look into that. As I mentioned, right, like okay, lack of automation, integration, and consistency of all the AppSec tools, right, the biggest challenge to the current DevSecOps. Now, the survey, like okay, it's come from the 451 research, where it captured from almost like 350 enterprise organizations. They have given this feedback. You see, the first one, which is like 61% of mention, like okay, it's lack of automated, integrated, and security testing tools. Why do we need? Why there is a risk for that? Why people are have the concern on that? The reason is, if I won't able to automate all my AppSec tools, if I won't able to integrate all my AppSec activities in a single solution, that's a concern. The second one is the inconsistent approach, where when I say inconsistent approach, right, there is no clear thing what need to be done, how exactly you could able to take care. Now that's about 56% as mentioned. Okay, I don't know what to do. The third one is the security testing slow things down. As I mentioned, right, like the sprint happens, then your delivers happen, your AppSec team will take time. With those information, right, my security testing will slow down, where I won't able to get all the things activities be done so fast. That's all the one of the key thing. And then the key important thing is the false positives. 46% of the customers says, okay, I don't know how to manage the false positive. How would I tackle these false positives? Okay, the reason behind, where a lot of customers interest lose the interest on the any AppSec tool is a higher false positive rate. When you have a higher false positive rate, eventually that solution will be in the shelf. No one utilize that. How do we address that problem if I have the false positives? That's all concern will be like, okay, your AppSec slows the development. And then the last one, which is like the developers don't wait, the developer resistance. If you look right, like any CXO or in a VP or in a director level, right, as soon as any AppSec tool introduced as part of my process, right, there is a resistance from the development team. Hey, I have used these solutions. Why you are introducing one more solution? Are there any need? Those type of resistance you hear from the developer. Okay, and the last one, which is called the compliance. I'm not able to manage the compliance, like like okay, PCI DSS, I'm not able to see. I'm not able to see cert C. I'm not able to like OWASP top 2017 21. How would I take care of all these compliance standards also? Now, eventually, with all these problems, as I mentioned, the team will deliver the insecure software, unsecure software, and eventually you have a data breach. Now, these concerns, these challenges need to be addressed at each and every organization. How do we do that? We will quickly go through that. I just want to pass it over here, like, okay, quickly, right? Like, okay, what we're talking here. We have seen the challenges, how it impacts with the your DevOps process. You see, right, like okay, the old tools, whatever the tools you use, right, like it slows down your DevOps velocity. How do we specify that okay, it slows down? The first one is the pipeline congestion. When I say pipeline congestions, right, like okay, I think most of the organizations are moving from monolithic to microservices. Okay, we have seen like there is like a the change is happening. But when you have these type of solutions, right, they don't know what type of testing tools need to be done, at what point these test solutions need to be done. Okay, now this is where okay, the activity overload will happen at the pipeline congestion. Now the simple answer is like okay, you run the test intelligently, not sequentially. Rather, you look right test at the right time. That's where you would able to minimize the overload in the DevOps activity. The second one is finding the management. When I say finding management, right, you have seen like you use like 10 plus 20 plus solutions, you use more tools, you use more testing, and then you have more findings. When you have this, right, like okay, the each and every development team and your security consultant will have a data overload. They don't know what type of findings need to be looked on priority basis. Is this defect is need to be critical? Is other defects need to be critical? They don't know the prioritization. This is the one of the concern which we are trying to address with a SOC solution.
Yeah. This is definitely brings things in a very perspective where you can, from the challenges perspective, you build the understanding. So one is certainly uh, how you are making it sure that each and every things that you have been doing in application security is tested, and that's why the pipeline of a testing needs to be managed. I remember I was managing application security program for a larger US client in my previous role, basically, and we used to have a lot of those problems. When will the application come for testing? And managing the pipeline of testing had been very difficult challenge that those days. I'm talking about some 12, 13 years back time, basically. But another challenge will prop in when if we test the application and things comes as these are the issues and problem, how to manage those findings, basically, and which department, how much time basically you take to really manage those challenges, basically, which one is very critical. So the governance of security of application, governance of application security itself was quite difficult, because both sides you will constrain. One is your ability to test the application timely is one concern. Another concern, say, even if you test the application, how long you will take to particularly close a particular vulnerability, and which one is bigger priority, and which one is not for basically you. So this is really putting the overall problem statement in a very key important two buckets, basically. So and I can very well relate, because I remember managing a lot of those kind of application security program for the larger clients in US, actually.
Thank you very much, Vinayak. Like, okay, that's where like, okay, we are trying to address with our solutions. Like, okay, I'll go to that. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Okay, now as we have seen, right, like, okay, the teams use multiple tools. Okay, it's an organization responsibility to assess what type of vulnerabilities are there in an individual attack surface. When I say individual attack surface, right, I have my own proprietary code, I have my own third-party OSS components, I have my application where reside on network. In all those attack surfaces, customer will use certain AppSec tools. Like for example, if you say the proprietary code, right, like they might use like Coverity, they might use checkmarks, Vera code, Fortify, all those proprietary code related proprietary solutions. And when it looks to third-party components, right, like they might use like a software combination technology like Black Duck, White Sword as a snake or anything, right? They utilize this one. And then same way network also, like you might use like Qualys, Rapid7, Tenable. Now, I will correlate the same thing. What you have, the recent, like which happened on the last Friday about the Log4j2 vulnerability at the end of the session, how you could able to correlate these things. Okay. Now, with this attack surface, now why the customer need to invest as an SOC solution? With all the pain points, right? Like, okay, one and foremost is like, okay, I should release my software faster and secure. I need a higher speed. With addition to higher speed, right, I should have a lower cost. For example, right, I should not look after like multiple findings across multiple things. Like with a minimal time, you could able to do that and reduce the friction between the development and AppSec and the DevOps one. And then the fourth one, which is called the continuous feedback. When I say the continuous feedback, right? Hey, Pawan, like, okay, there is a bug over there. Okay, it's immediately pushed to my Jira. How could I do the quick feedback? If there is no continuous feedback, it impacts me. And then the last one, which is called the continuous compliance. Hey, as an organization, it's abide like, okay, we should have these all the compliance things. If we won't able to take care of these compliance things, it's tough for me. It's tough as an organization to move forward for that. That's the reason where organization need to invest the ASSAC solution. Okay. Now, how Synopsys CodeX solution improves the efficiency across the SDLC and the DevSecOps. We have seen a general challenges. Those general challenges does not come from Synopsys. It's the industry gave those things, and Gartner resonate that using a SOC, and then they see these are all the challenges. Now, using our CodeX solution, how you could able to improve. The first and foremost is the critical business risk. When I say the business risk, right, like, okay, how you could able to manage the risk across my enterprise. Let's look into the a problem statement. First one, which is called the management look, is like, okay, I need a unified view. When I say the unified view, right, as I mentioned, right, you might run a point solution, and then I should see the risk visibility in a single pane of glass. That's where the solution. Now, how do we do that? Currently, in the industry where everyone talks about, I'm just generalizing this. I'm not going for a point solution like Coverity, Seeker, or Black Duck. You name it, any technology. The technology is a static application security testing, interactive application security testing, dynamic application security testing, software composition analysis. Like, you can be able to build like your pen testing results, and then you could be able to bring the network tools. All the results are there. Then your AppSec engineer will manually look into the point solution. Now, the the security team will manage in a separate spreadsheet. Hey, this finding is true positive. This finding is false positive. And this is like, okay, information. I don't take it like a little bit serious. That way, a security consultant will spend almost like 10 minutes per individual finding going to individual technology. Now, with this, you see how much time it takes to look after multiple AppSec tool results. Not only this, now when the AppSec team, a security consultant saw this problem, okay, let me give back the feedback to my development team. That's where he could able to raise a Jira. Now the Jira reaches to a specific developer. Now developer will go to and then figure out, okay, this defect, okay, let me fix this issue. He will take few more times. All these things are a manual activity. Now, if we look our solution using the Synopsys CodeDX solution, you could able to automate, aggregate, and correlate as part of your DevOps process into single itself. Okay, you could able to eliminate all the time-consuming manual task, whichever you do as part of manual activity, you could able to eliminate using the Synopsys CodeDX solution. Okay, how do we do that? This is where our CodeDX solution, okay, like our masterclass, like the workshop, like the deep dive will be on all these individual elements as an engineering perspective, as a management perspective, how you could able to look after this. Okay, the first one is like, okay, execute the tests, automatically run AppSec tools, what you do over here, and then the correlate results. When I say correlate results, right, you combine the security issues where like CodeDX supports almost like 75 plus commercial tools and 15 plus open source tool. You could able to correlate everything on the here. Once we correlate, right, you could able to use our machine learning and find out which defect need to be prioritized and which defect need to be fixed on a higher basis. That's where you could able to utilize our triage assistant. And the fourth one, which is called the remediation, you could able to using like track all the remediations within a single Jira instance, Jira or a service now or a GitLab, whatever you recommend, right? You have, right? You could able to remediate everything over single itself. And the last one, which is called the risk visibility of all AppSec tools. That's where you could able to single pane of glass for all the activities what you do as part of your DevSecOps process. Now, this is about the key solutions about the Kodiaks, but how this correlate to your management aspects? Because right, like for example, if I'm a senior engineer, if I'm in a like a senior manager, right, my VP, my director, or my CXO might ask, hey Pavan, could you just tell me what type of what was the software has been tested? We have seen a stock. Okay, when was the software tested? Okay, you could able to figure out. Codex will tell you these are all the AppSec tools has been run on this application. The second one is, okay, what type of security quality issues has been found? We have seen in the second question in the SOC 1 that has been mapped with our correlation and the triage assistant. And then figure out what the defects had been fixed. You could able to track those remediation with the issue tracker within a bidirectional communication. And then last one, how could I access the risk of my application overall? This is where a Synopsys Code DX able to give you a single platform for all your risk in a as part of your organization. Okay. Now let me.
Yeah, so, Pawan,
Yes.
here my question is, so this is like a, although there are definitely some capability I had seen which are very in deep in application security, but this is more like a program management, application security program management capability basically, right? So where you have a lot of those managerial views, managerial expectation, and at the same time you have all those security operational level element that you basically do, and you extract a performance visibility out of it and also make it more actionable basically. So, and then there are capabilities you talk about. Okay, there are almost sometimes people can go to get a 50 plus solutions in the application security basically.
Correct.
Suppose a new solution comes in basically, right, and solving a specific new problem. So would this be able to integrate or engage with that new solutions coming to solve a specific problem of application security?
Yeah, that's a valid question, Vinayak. Yes, yes. Like if you see, right, like okay, if you talk with we had talked with multiple customers. Okay, yes, absolutely. They see, okay, we are going to bring one more solution, but if we see the value, what it brings, how it would able to resonate your challenges, customers will look after this. I couldn't see any solution like okay, where okay, if uh, if my problem didn't solve, they won't look after a solution at all. And that's where I got the feedback like saying, okay, Code DX would able to solve all those concerns, Vinayak.
Okay, so let me pick up two questions which has been put up here
Yes,
by
please.
Sanandya and Shilpa. So the first question is interesting question, but I think you somewhere mentioned that in your uh, uh, couple of slides that in the first half of this particular discussion. So how does ASAC manage the zero-day vulnerability, right? So how would it will be able to help you to manage zero-day vulnerability? So this is the first question. Then I will talk to second question actually.
Yes. Okay, that's a valid question. Like, okay, we have seen the zero-day vulnerability, like what we have seen converted to known vulnerability like Forze. Um, if you see all the zero-day vulnerability, right? If I name it like, okay, it's still available to a vendor itself. Eventually, right? Like, okay, if it is an open source aspect, those zero-day vulnerability will be converted to known vulnerability. But if you look as a commercial application, which is your proprietary code, right? Whatever the vulnerability is, it might be like a SQL injection, it might be remote code execution, all the problems will be available to you itself, and you could able to see based on like okay CVSS score and everything. You could able to figure out how this impact is there on my applications. But the 0 day and the known vulnerabilities mostly comes into like a public projects. Okay, that's where I could see that. Now, as an organization, whether this 0 day vulnerability has been impacted, okay, only the vendor knows. For example, like as an organization, right, I had found a vulnerability in my application. I never tell to the world. I will fix that vulnerability at my level itself and release my patch. That's where the customers will take care on their own about the 0 day vulnerability. If it is an open source application, if it's an open source project, that 0 day vulnerability will be a public, which is we consider as a known vulnerability. For example, the currently the Log4j2 vulnerability, which is a known vulnerability. Now, if you see that known vulnerability has been impacted using CodeDX, absolutely, you could able to find out whether this known vulnerability has been impacted across my application. You could able to see over here. That is pretty well possible.
No, but Pawan, I mean, one part of the answer, and correct me if I'm going wrong here, basically. So what you initially talked about is, so there are ways that people identify day vulnerability, right? So one
Yes.
way is definitely pulse testing, right? Pulse testing or puzzing is something being used to identify zero-day vulnerability. And
Correct.
if I remember well, so you said in some of the slide that you ASA can integrate with the pulse testing tool as well, basically. If somebody is working to identify zero-day vulnerability, then ASOC can very well create a management or governance layer on top of it, basically. So those results of the first testing tool can be picked up and it can identify this particular vulnerability. Probably it's a zero-day vulnerability, basically. Is that understanding right?
Yes, absolutely. Yes, Vinayak. Like, okay, you could able to bring, for example, you use in a first solution, like let's take example, Synopsys defensive solution.
Yeah.
You fuzz your device, your software, your medical device, your IoT device, and there are 0 day vulnerabilities within your device, within your application. You could be able to bring those results using the custom API into the SOC solution like CodeDX. You could be able to bring that. But in the current, like we are coming up, how you could be able to import our defensive results in the CodeDX in the next releases also, Vinayak.
Yeah.
But as of
Yeah.
now, it's a customization. You could be able to bring up our like using an XML. You could you could able to bring not only the defensives, any other unsupported solution also you could able to bring to the CodeDX. That is
Yeah.
pretty possible.
Okay, so architecturally it is possible. Probably we'll have to wait for some time, and I hope
Correct.
we probably answer this question. But the next question is interesting, and which probably also initially talked about. So this aggregation and correlation we talked in the context of SIEM solution, right? Which is at a very enterprise level solution, and now we increasingly talk about on top of SIM there is a SOAR solution basically which helps you to do the orchestration and response as well actually. And there is another side, there is a GRC solution as well which helps you to aggregate and correlate basically. So these
Yeah.
are largely talked in the context of the enterprise security management which integrates with so many different solutions that to an application network in protection, so many solutions basically.
Correct.
So question that Shilpa asked here is, if I can use the GRC tool for the aggregation correlation, or for that matter, my addition to that is if I use SIM solution, then how SOC will be different from them actually?
Yeah. That's a valid question. Like okay, where most of the organizations use the SIM solution, okay, to figure out like what exactly has been there. There is a slight difference what SIM does, what SOC will be solve the problem. Okay, SIM would able to capture all the data irrespective of what type of content need to be pulled, right? You would able to do that. But whereas for the SOC, right, it's mainly focused on the application. I'll quickly show you how the correlation works. That way you could able to clearly understand how the correlation mainly focused for an AppSec level perspective. Okay, maybe give me 15 minutes, I'll able to cover those aspects, and then
Okay.
I would able to like Shilpa would able to get the answer for that. Any further questions, Vinayak?
No, I think we can go. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Now we have seen the challenges, right? Like, okay, with that challenges, let's look into like how the synopsis code reacts. You see, right? You run individual point solution. You bring all the individual solution into single pane of glass, which is like a unified risk visibility. From those risk visibility, right, I could able to uh, use our synopsis IO, like intelligent orchestration, which is a policy as code, which tests need to be run at the right time. Rather than doing all the tasks sequentially, you could able to utilize our synopsis IO. Then as a developer level, right, like, okay, the congestion, like the friction, right, I could able to figure out those issues at my Eclipse or Visual Studio, find out like how the issues are there. Then you could able to utilize our secure code warrior. When it's a secure code warrior, right, I don't know what exactly this problem, either it's a SQL injection or a cross-site scripting. You could able to utilize our secure code warrior out of the box integration and find out like how you could able to remediate the problem. And the CI/CD pipelines. Okay, as part of my pipeline, I would like to bring all the results into a code DX and then figure out what is my security quality gates. You could be able to utilize our solution. And then the last one, which is called like, okay, bug tracking, like, okay, the remediation guidance based on like, okay, however the defects has been escalated. You could able to have a bidirectional communication between the Zira and the code DX. And the last one, which is like a system of record. When it's a system of record, right, as an organization, I should see all the content. All my content should be on a single machine itself, on a single platform itself. That way you could be able to fulfill the system of record. Then this is where synopsis code dx would be able to fulfill all the challenges we have seen uh, by synopsis code dx solution. Okay. I would like to quickly, maybe like 5 minutes for all the poll questions. Ishan, would you just able to uh, poll the questions from 1 to 4? Each question will get a minute. With those poll questions, right? Like, okay, we are just collecting the answers, and then after the maybe like after 1 week, after 10 days, right, we would able to see maybe like a gift voucher or something. We're planning on that. That way, we'll receive on this. Ishan.
Ishan has already activated the poll. For all the audience, please go to the poll. And there's a poll which has been uh, put there. So please provide your answers for that. How much time we have, Ishan, for this?
Each question 1 minute.
Okay.
In fact, like in 30 seconds itself, it's good enough, Vinayak.
Yeah. So please click the poll button which comes at the right, and then you would see the questions. And when you see the questions, please provide your answers. We will provide you some time for
I hope the Pearl question like resonates what type of challenges we have seen and then how you could able to see a SOC solves. That's the main intent. This is the last question. Okay. Uh, thank you very much for giving the responses to all the Pearl questions. Okay. Um, let me get back to my session.
Yeah, please go ahead.
Yes. I hope you're able to see my screen back when I could just confirm me.
Not really. It is coming now. Yeah.
Thank you. Now let's look into like the workshop, what type of challenges we have seen with those engineering activities, right? How our Synopsys Code DX would be able to solve that. As part of this workshop, right, like I'm going to cover uh, how you could able to onboard a code, okay, like where we'll create a quick project and then you linked a Git repo as part of your enterprise organization. Then we could able to initiate the bundle scanners. When I say initiate the bundle scanners, as I mentioned, right, we have almost like 15 plus open source tools are bundled. You could able to utilize those open source bundle tools, and then you could able to add the secondary scan results as part of your AppSec activity. You might be using a commercial solution. You could able to add those results into the code DX, and then you could able to find out like correlation results. But this correlation, I might have like a tons of findings. With the correlation, you will have very minimal. And then the other one is like the a triage assistant with using a machine learning, how this would able to help on this. And then you could able to figure out how you are able to communicate back to this development team. How could I push this specific escalated issue to the development team? And then the developer fixes the a defect, how you could able to communicate back to the code DX in a bidirectional communication. All those things we will look as part of the workshop walkthrough. Okay. Now let me look quickly show my Chrome browser. I will quickly do that. Vinayak, you're able to see my screen, right? My Chrome browser. Hey, Vinayak or Ishan, could someone confirm? I'm sorry. Just want to see that. Oh, okay. Thank you. Thank you for confirmation. Now, if you see over here, right, this is our CodeDX solution. First and foremost, right, I would like to quickly create a new project over here. Like, let me just go to like, I'll create a quick project like AISS Git. I'm just creating a project. Let me bring up one of the Git URL. Okay, I will just say one of the Git URL from GitHub. This is one of the open source application where there are certain concerns are there. Let me bring this application. Okay, let me just do this. Okay, it's pretty simple. I just created a project, and then you go for your git config. The git config says, okay, you could very well give your enterprise URL. When you give the enterprise URL, right, the CodeDX will automatically clone the repository on the platform server. Okay, it has been cloned, okay, completed. And then if you go to my analysis, right, whatever the content has been there in your project, it detected the content. Based on the content, you see over here, it detected the CSS source, HTML source, Java source, and XML source. I didn't mention what type of source is that. CodeDX had automatically detected the content, and it recommended what type of tools to run as part of my open source bundle tools. I could able to find out like there are almost like 15 bundle tools out there where you can run check style, ESLint, JSHint, and PMD. You could very well uncheck or check whatever you require. Let me just uncheck this specific solution, and then I could able to run the analysis. The analysis is pretty faster. Maybe like it takes maybe like depends on the project source code. Maybe it takes maybe like 1 minute. It might take 10 minutes. Based on that, right? The analysis will happen for all these bundle tools, and then I could able to see these many defects. Okay, you see how quickly we have onboarded the project using your Git Enterprise server. Oh, analysis has been completed in 23 seconds. I could able to see the all the results. That's pretty fast. You could able to notice all the findings has been detected by all the open source bundle tools. Now let me quickly show you. Like Pawan is talking about the bundle tools. What is this? Okay, let me quickly give you certain information which will be helpful to you. Okay, what is this bundle tools? If you see over here, right, like, okay, sorry, so questions? Any questions, Vinayak?
Not really. You can go ahead.
Thank you. You see over here, my bundle tools, right? These are all my bundle tools. When you use our Synopsys CodeX commercial solution, these bundle tools are being embedded into the CodeX. These are all open source tools. Almost like 15 plus open source tools like check style, CPP check, dependency check, okay, ESLint, PMD, PHP PMD, Spotbox. Everything has been there within the CodeX. Okay, that's about the first one. Now we have seen how you could able to onboard a Git project. Hey Pavan, like okay, you're saying a Git project, but we don't use Git. We might use SVN, we might use CVS, we might use other SCM. How could I do that? Absolutely fine. Like okay, you could able to create a new project, and then you could able to give a source zip itself. When I say source zip, right? For example, I'll just go for here and then say source. I'll create a project and then say, hey, for here, Pavan, like, okay, I would like to quickly go for the new analysis and say, okay, let me give you the add file. This add file, you could very well give any zip folder. Whatever the zip folder you have, right, you could very well take it. Like, let's take example. I'll just go for one of my source code. Let's take example. I will take like my webgut. I will just upload over here. Then based on the source content, what you had given, whatever we have done, right, it automatically detects the content. Okay, this detects contains like saying, okay, it has Java source, it has a JavaScript source, it has npm packages. Based on this information, right, it recommends to open source tool to run. You see, it has been there. Now you could able to very well begin the analysis of this as well. I could able to run the analysis, which will take a little bit time, but I already did analysis, and then I could able to quickly show you because I did offline on yesterday itself, like because it will take a little longer. That's where you could able to see AISS source offline. It took almost like 13 minutes. I have these many findings. This way you could able to see the onboarding of your project within a bundle tools. We are talking, Vinayak, you mentioned, right, like why, Pawan, you're talking about the commercial solutions also.
Yeah.
Why only
Yeah.
commercial? CodeDX has the open source bundle tools. You could very well utilize. But if you want to bring up other open source bundle tools also, that is pretty well possible. Let me bring that information also. If you see, right, like importing scan results, as I mentioned, right, 75 plus commercial solutions, 15 plus open source tools, bundle tools. You could see there are multiple SaaS tools. I'm sure you might be using like check style, check marks. You might be using like Fortify. You might be using HCL AppScan. Okay. And you might be using Parasoft, anything, right? All the things are there. If you look at the dash tools like, okay, Acunautics, Burbsuit, HP Web Inspect, okay, both the commercial and open source tools, we could able to import the results. Now, if you see the IaaS tools like contrast, like synopsis seeker, checkmarks, whatever the IaaS tools, you could able to bring that. Okay, the infrasec tools, which is like as part of your network, right? You could able to bring up like from the Nmap or Qualys VM, Qualys CS, threat modeling, the software composition analysis like Black Duck, okay, dependency check, Sneak, okay, White Source, container tools like Sneak Container, Aqua, okay, cloud infrastructure looks like Prisma Cloud. All those things you could able to import the results to the code DX. This is where our main key thing. Okay, it's not like a synopsis solution. You could able to bring up any other third party commercial solution also into the code DX. Okay, now let me quickly show you like, okay, how it looks. Okay, let me bring up one of my project. I will just go for like a tool connectors, because I have an access to synopsis solutions like Coverity, Black Duck, and Seeker. I had configured this. It's pretty simple. Okay, it just ask, okay, certain credentials of your server, and then tell which project need to be done, and then how you could able to import the results. You see, there are two ways you could able to import the results. It's a auto update. When I say auto update, CodeDX tool connector will automatically pull the results at a specific scheduled time. You could able to use auto update. Hey, Pawan, no, I don't want to do the auto update, but this one I would like to do as part of my CI/CD pipeline. When I say CI/CD pipeline, right, you do the SaaS, you do the DAS, you do the IaaS, you do the software composition analysis, and I will run my CodeDX project also. Then it could able to import the results of all connectors. That way, you could able to add the connectors where you could able to import the results. This is our commercial like a synopsis solution. But if you want to go to the other connectors, this the connector is a simplified approach. You just provide the details and then you could able to do that. For example, if you go for like other connectors like, okay, for example, Fortify, like whoever using Fortify, right, they clearly understand what is a Fortify as a server URL, that you could able to do that. That way, each and every commercial solution, we have a tool connectors. Almost like we
So,
support
so this tool connector comes as a out of box tool connectors, right?
yes, yes,
Yeah.
Vinayak. These are all out of the box.
Yeah. So I also run a kind of incubator, and there are one or two people, one or two companies which are building application security solution, solving a specific problem some applications. So for that, for them, suppose they have to integrate with this one. So is it like you have to build the connector, or they can? How that happens? They have to build something which can integrate with this basically.
Yeah, that's a valid question. And then like almost of all the customer ask about this also, Vinayak.
Yeah.
If you see, right, like as I mentioned, right, we support 75 plus commercial solutions.
Okay.
Out of the 75, right, we have 30 plus connectors.
Okay.
Okay,
Okay.
this connectors will be like added by our synopsis team by release based on the request we got from our customers. For
Okay.
example, right, like okay, if you're running in a like open source tool, like maybe you are using open source tool and they don't have UI, they just generate the report in an XML file.
Mhm.
Absolutely, you could able to import the XML file to Synopsys Code DX.
Okay. Okay.
The tool connectors, right, if you see, right, like okay, whatever the tool connectors, right, it's popular one where the AppSec vendors are there in the industry for quite some time. That's how we build. However, if you have a connector way like, okay, this is very important to us, you can very well reach out to us. We could able to build those connectors also. Or as in a short gap, right? If you're not able to give that also, right? Like at least uh, import the results as part of an XML or in a specific format, you could able to see the results of those AppSec tools into the Codex as well, Vinayak.
Yeah.
Okay, now that's how, like okay, I have configured my connectors, I have all the results. Okay, that's where you could able to see. Okay, let's take an example. I have these many findings, okay, like Coverity, Black Duck, Seeker. I have like open source bundle tools and everything. But here I would like to quickly show you something called as a show input, because right, your project team need to understand, hey, I have these many results, but these results comes from which all solutions. You could see
Mhm.
Checkstyle has been come from these many results. ESLint can have these many findings. Coverity has these many findings. Black Duck has these many findings. You could be able to visualize these inputs. How did we get these results? Okay. Now let me go back to my slide content where we have seen this one and then secondary results. Let me look as an engineering solution how I could able to see a correlation. When I say the correlation, right, one of the most important thing is you run multiple AppSec tools. There are almost like 34% of issues found by 5 open source tools and 66% found by 4 commercial tools. That's where you could able to notice here. But there is a little overlap. 90% of the 3 findings by single tool, but there are certain findings. Same finding has been detected by 2 tools, 3 tools, 4 tools, 6 tools. This way, our correlation engine will work. Instead of going a point solution, you could able to see all the correlation within the codex itself. That's where you could able to minimize your time taken to review the problem.
So Pawan here, this correlation, there are two ways I see this. One is uh, when these tools are reporting issues, right?
Yeah,
So they must be reporting in a format which is uniform all across and standardized all across basically. So
correct.
there is one way is that, and that's why you are able to find and correlate that basically. Other could
Absolutely.
be probably they may not be doing it, but you on top of it you apply probably some other technologies to get a sense of what they have been reporting and doing it. So help me understand how this happens, because the
Yes.
language and format of a reporting is improved in such a way that you are able to correlate it well, or you have developed solutions so that you can make a sense of whatever being reported from them.
Yes, absolutely. That's true. Like, okay, I'll take the solution and then I'll explain you how our correlation engine works also in next slide,
Okay.
Vinayak.
Okay.
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 Now, one more thing, like, okay, reduce the prioritization of your security issues. When you do your hybrid analysis, okay, when you do the PCIDSs, right, you could able to see only these many findings are there. But you could see there are almost like these many results are there from all the issues, but you will have only these many findings. You could able to see almost like 30%, like 60% reduction. That's the value you will get from the correlation. How do we do that? This
Mhm.
is where our solution. Okay, the this is a tool rule, Vinayak.
Yeah.
The tool rule will be like they have their own rule. We don't know, correct? They have configured their own rule specific.
Mhm.
But each and every rule, right, like what we had observed, right, they map it to CWE. a common weakness enumeration.
Mm-hmm.
Now, based on this tool rule, for example, there is a tool rule where there is no CW linked.
Mm-hmm.
Directly we map it to CodeDX rule.
Mm-hmm.
Now, but there is a tool rule which may be like coverity rule, checkmarks rule, 45 rule, and everything map it to CWE.
Mm-hmm.
And for those CWs, right, like we have created our own CodeDX rule.
Mm-hmm.
Now, with all these matches, we will apply the correlation.
Mm-hmm.
Now, maybe right as a default, we will go with this correlation rules. But as an organization, Pavan, like, okay, I don't like your correlation rules. Absolutely, you could able to customize based on your requirements. That feasibility we had given to all our customers. Is this helpful, Vinayak? How
Yeah,
our
yeah,
correlation works?
yeah, yeah. That
That's
certainly. Yeah,
yeah. That's where Shilpad also asked the question. This is where we apply our correlation rules and then we bring the results.
yeah, and this may not be very easily possible at GRC because GRC is made for some different purpose. This is very contextualized and purpose-driven kind of thing, which was the application basically.
Correct.
The result of this can be fed to GRC, but
Yep.
only bringing GRC to this level may not be a easy option actually.
Absolutely. If you look SIM tool also, GRC tool also, right? They don't correlate like this.
Yeah, yeah,
That's where we were talking, right? Like, okay, you had asked a question about like, okay, all the organizations, right, like last 15 20 years, right, they use SIM tools, GRC tools, they do their own correlation, but this correlation is entirely different, which will be focused on AppSec level.
but would it be like way you are saying it here in application security, the same thing would happen now in network security in other areas of security as well?
Correct.
So means the concept of this correlation orchestration, which is being there at enterprise level, will be increasingly going to decompose level like application security or data security or network security. Do you see that that is happening, or it is very specific to application security?
Yeah, it's like, okay, I'm really sorry, like, okay, you could very well consider for your network also, your infrastructure level also. For example, let's take an use case where you have a log4j2 vulnerability, which a CVE is there.
Yeah,
Correct. Now
yeah,
customer might run rapid 7, customer might run qualys VM.
yeah.
Qualys VM and rapid 7 also detects if they upgrade their database, right? You could able to identify those CVE also. We will map those network related CVEs with open source also. That has been already done. That's where like I'm just talking, right? It's not only um, uh, like your proprietary code. You take it proprietary code, open source code, and application reside on network. All those things we apply the correlation, Vinayak.
Yeah, and then I believe ki why this is very specific to application security because application development is happening. So there are very few organizations engaged in network side, right? And whereas the application development, there's so many millions of people are doing application, right?
Yes,
And so many millions of applications being built basically.
correct,
So this particular bringing orchestration and correlation to application level will largely specific to the application security than other areas of security basically. And
correct,
then the volume and velocity, the way you talked about the builds, 100 times a build which has been pushed by somebody like Netflix, and something that will happen in many other organizations as well. That's why this becomes very specific to application security compared to other areas of security actually.
yes, yes. That's agree,
Yeah,
agree, totally agree on that point, Vinayak. Yeah.
yeah,
Let me bring up my use case, like, okay, how you could able to see the correlation. As
yeah,
I mentioned, right, the correlation you could able to see. Um, you got imported all the results. Let me go to the specific findings of my application. I could able to see this inputs has been there, come from multiple solutions. Based on that information, right, I have total results of like almost like 2000 results. from all the solutions, but I could able to bring back to 403 unique findings. It means almost like 80% removal. You could able to see only these 403 findings. That's where our correlation would able to do that. Quickly, I'll explain like, okay, how exactly this 80% deduplication happened and then all those things. Now you see here, this tools has been run and then all the results has been there. But I would like to quickly show you something called tool overlaps. When I say tool overlaps, right, there are 3 tools which has detected by same findings. What is these findings? If I go over here, right, let me just go to here. This finding ID, which is a cross-site scripting, came from OWASP Zap, Coverity, and Nessus. In a point solution, it's a separate finding. But in the code DX, it's a single finding itself. Does our correlation works? Now, within that finding, right, you could be able to see the detailed information. What is cross-site scripting? This comes from the code DX. And you could be able to go to the evidence from the Zap. The Zap shows where is this finding, the contextual description. This is the problem. And this is a HTTP activity. Okay, the HTTP activity is coming from the search.jsp. That's the referrer. And this is the response. I got it from OWASP Zap. Now, if you go to the coverity, which is a static analysis, you could able to see like a contextual description, how this problem came. We have seen that the problem is there in the search.jsp. We mapped the search.jsp. This is the concern I have. That's how our correlation will look like the problem statement and then CW information. That's how we mapped into single finding itself. Now, this is about the coverity. Now, if I go to my Nessus also, right, Nessus also will have the same context. Like, okay, the same search.jsp, you have a concern on that. This is how our correlation could able to bring into deduplication and able to see that. This is the value you bring. Rather than looking this 2000 defects, you could able to focus on only these findings. Because I had imported all the results from open source solutions and commercial solutions. Okay, that's about my tool overlaps. It's not only that, okay, it's like our filtering is much helpful to all the customers. For example, right, like, okay, Pavan, like, okay, I'm looking for a specific problems. Maybe like I would like to see the seeker issues. Yes, you could able to look seeker issues only. Let me just go to that and then seeker. Okay, then you could able to see what type of problems are there. Okay, within that information, right, I would say, okay, I would like to go for specific standards. The standards might be like pretty huge. You could able to say, okay, hey Pavan, like show me disaster. I would like to go for like OWASP top 10 2017. 2021 is coming in the next release. You could able to do that. Okay, that way you could able to select my PCI DSS for specific thing, and then you could able to see only these problems. This way you could apply my filters, and then you could able to generate the PDF report or a CSV report. Anything is pretty possible within the codex itself. That's how the finding can be visualized with a minimal effort. Okay, let me go to here. The next engineering solution. Hey Pavan, I totally understand. Okay, any questions are there, Vinayak, as of now?
Not really. There is only one comment here I'm seeing is can some white paper or use cases links posted or white paper can be shared actually.
Yeah, sure. I'll do that. I will take that point. Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay. Let me go to the next engineering solution. The engineering solution is called the machine learning. This machine learning automates the triage and the prioritization. How do we do that? We have seen, right, one of the challenge where almost like 40% of residents like, okay, I'm not able to manage the false positives. How our Synopsys CodeX solution will able to engineer your things? Let's take example. You have scanned application. Those scanned applications have thousands of findings. Okay, as an AppSec analyst or development, where you do some triage. When I say triage, right, you mark that problem as a bug or a false positive or an information, whatever you have done the triage. Okay. Now, whatever the analyst has been applied in the code DX, right, our triage assistant will capture and then send it to our machine learning. Then machine learning will apply the model. Then with that model, we would able to classify other findings as this is a false positive, this is escalated. How do we do that? Based on learning what you have done in your instance. This is our machine learning would able to um, minimize the findings rather than looking all the findings. Okay, this very very helpful where we have a lot of false positives. You could able to minimize those things, and then you could get in a prioritization also. We will give an like a confidence score. All those things are possible with our engineering solution with machine learning. Now let's look into that.
Yeah,
Sorry.
yeah. So there is one question, and in your explanation, if you can give a throw light on that question, is the this false positive effectiveness, and there are most of the code scanning will promises you that, right?
Yes.
So compared to them, how this is different and how this improves the false positive detection basically. So that's the question basically.
Okay.
Yeah.
Our false positive thing is not with the source tool. For example, you're using 45, you're using check marks, you're using coverity. Those solutions gives whether it's a true positives, false positives. Our machine learning is not from those point solutions. Our machine learning is we learn from your feedback. When I say you have 1,000 findings, out of those 1,000 findings, that's where I'm just showing over here. These are all your 1,000 findings. Now, this out of these 1,000 findings, maybe you triaged 100 defects, like or 200 defects as a false positive or a bug. Then our machine learning will learn the content. How did you do that? Based on that, we will prioritize.
So what you are saying is every scan tool would have its own ability the way the question is, and they would definitely try to do something on false positive and negative based on whatever they're understanding. But you sit at aggregate level, right?
Yes.
Where you have a lot of history with you, you have a lot of data with you, you have multiple tools outcome with you, and then you understand the triage, and probably at aggregate level you will have better understanding about a particular issue is false positive or not. So probably this answers this question. Mr. Kaushal is basically say why this is different than an individual scanning tool basically, because this
Yes.
is a more at a program level, at a program level, with multiple solutions talking to codecs, and mm, that's what it is different than an individual scanning tool.
Yes. Let me quickly show you that information also.
Yeah.
If I show you over here, right? Like, okay, let me just bring up. Okay, let me bring up this thing. Sorry. Okay. To apply the machine learning, right? We required a minimum of 100 findings need to be triaged. For example, you have purchased the code DX solution. You have imported, like you have scanned like almost like 30 applications, and 30 applications might have like consolidated. You might have like 10,000 defects. Minimum, if you apply like the triage, then we apply the machine learning and tell you this defect is a false positive, this defect is an escalated, based on the what you triaged. To show it to you quickly, right, let me bring up those capabilities also here. how this will be beneficial to the my development team or my engineering team. Okay, if I go over here, right, like, okay, you see here, like, the predicted status. You see the predicted status shows this is done by the code dx. You see there are almost like two 12 defects are escalated based on the triage data what we had captured from your local instance. We see these problems are true positive. That's where you could able to see the predicted status.
Mhm.
That's about the machine learning. The same thing, which main concern is the false positives. When I say the false positives, right, like thousands of false positives are there. Hey, Pavan, like I triaged certain defects as false positives in code dx or in your point solution. I imported those triage status over here. Then you see automatically this has been predicted as false positive 34.6. This is the key thing with our machine learning. I hope you see the value, how
Yeah.
the machine learning applies based on your model, based on your triage. We learn that and we apply. Any questions on this, like Vinayak? Like maybe I'd like to just check.
Yeah, I think anyone Kaushalesh also probably understood to, and that's what he commented here is how this is different and how it is working. So so
Perfect.
the way you have been going is more programmatic way, right? And
Yes.
helping you manage the program, not a individual applications.
Yes.
False positive negative, or not an individual scan level false positive negative, basically. So
Yes.
because of that, you have better understanding, better significant larger data, and all the historical data, as well as all the current contextual data, and that's why ability to contribute, our ability to optimize the false positive and negative effectiveness basically will be quite significantly enhanced, because your intelligence is derived intelligence from all other intelligence, and at the same time you also add a lot of other things on top of it, basically.
Correct. That's true.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. Now that's where we have seen, like, okay, every 240 findings automatically categorized, and then you could able to save 1 week's effort time. That's where the value brings using our machine learning. Okay. Now let's look into the other one, which is called the track the remediation. When I say the track the remediation, right? Like, hey, Pavan, I understand you have a problem. I will assign a defect. Okay. Like an individual has been commented. Now you could able to track this problem as a bidirectional communication between the code dx, either from the Jira, either from ServiceNow. Okay. You could able to integrate that. It's a bidirectional communication between the code dx and any issue tracker. Now let me look quickly how it able to help you on this. If you see over here, right, like let me quickly go to one of my projects. The project has like multiple issues has been there. I had configured my issue tracker. Those issue trackers are like, okay, let me just quickly show you. There is a symbol over here. I will just say, okay, my issue tracker config. As I mentioned, right, like, okay, you could able to configure the issue tracking either with Jira or Azure DevOps or ServiceNow, GitLab. Based on that, right, you could able to do that. Now I had selected my Jira. Then I just specified from code dx to Jira what things need to be there. When I say what things need to be there, right? Okay, what is my Jira summary over here? What are the description? What type of labels need to be there? What is epic link? And when you have the priority of code dx, how it need to be mapped to the Jira. Okay, that's about the code dx to Jira. The same thing you could able to Jira to code dx. Now, if my code dx Jira is like severity is this highest, you map it to over here. Okay, when the code dx status is to do, you can mark it as unresolved over here. When you have it done in the Jira, you mark the problem as fixed. This way we could able to map it between the Jira to code dx to Jira. With addition to this, we have a solution called auto create. Hey Pavan, I totally understand, I don't want any manual intervention. Is solution is able to create an automatic ticket creation based on certain standards, based on certain template, based on my own severity, based on my detection method. Absolutely, it's very well possible. Now with this, I will just quickly take it like, okay, how you could able to do the remediation guidance between the Jira and bidirectional communication. Let me take one finding from a solution, how you could able to track these information within this. Okay, let me go to like, maybe like I'll go for like a coverage issue. The coverage issue, maybe like I'll take one of the SQL injection or any other type of problem. Let's take example, I have SQL injection. The SQL injection shows, okay, I have a SQL injection at this specific location at this source code, and you'll get the evidence, the data flow, everything is possible based on the finding, right? Okay, I could able to create an issue here. Okay, it's pretty simple. I map that and then say, okay, I create a new finding. Okay, absolutely, it's pretty possible. I could just say, okay, what is the project of that, my Jira? Okay, what is my reporter? Okay, I'll just say automatic or whatever it is. Then I'll say, okay, now with this info, oh, sorry, something is wrong. Sorry. Okay. Okay, I'll just say okay here. Then based on this information, right, I got the ticket. Now this ticket has been in my Jira instance. You could very well go to my Jira and then figure out, okay, as a developer, I will go through that and then figure out, okay, whether this defect has been true defect, because your AppSec consultant has been done. But as a developer, I will do own my own review, and then I could say, yes, oh, this is a problem to me. Then based on this, right, you could see this finding shows the same issue, like the 26293. This is Jira status, to do and unresolved. Here also status is unresolved. What I will do, right, maybe I will take some time. Maybe the time maybe like, okay, maybe like 5 minutes or 2 minutes. I will just say, make sure this as like, okay, I will say in review, I'm updated my Jira status. The code DX would able to synchronize the status in next few minutes, like saying, okay, yes, see here, it's an in review and then unresolved. That way, you're able to do that. Now, after that, right, like maybe I'll say, okay, this is maybe I will mark this problem as a some other thing. I'll just say fixed or whatever. I will update over here as fixed. Okay, then this information will be synchronized back to Jira over here. Okay, this way the bidirectional communication happens. You see, the Jira is done and done. Over here also, it's done. Now, what value it brings, right? There is no manual intervention. As part of your developer workflow, you do as part of your Jira tracking, then the Codex would be able to track the status and then update those status. That's where the bidirectional communication happens and then does that. Okay, that's about the bidirectional Jira integration for the remediation aspect. Any specific questions as of now, Vinayak?
Yeah, so I'm taking them now. There are some few questions certainly here. So one question is, uh, I believe, is this code DX having capability for threat resolution as well? Uh, I hope you get the question.
Yeah,
Um, yeah.
yeah, you could able to import the threat modeling results to the CodeDX. That is pretty possible.
Okay.
But
Okay.
as a code DX does the threat modeling, we won't able to do that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay. And I think there is one question on smart sock and ASSOC, and we explained that very well. Why, how this is different than this.
Yeah.
Um, So there is another question which talks about there are tool which give similar kind of functionality where all vulnerabilities can be into that system, and you can correlate to see the vulnerability patterns and according suggest for fix for vulnerability. How different is the approach in comparison with that functionality? Um, and one defined advantage of all scanning tools will be available in the SOC itself, basically. So this talks about a particular tool called thread fix.
Yes, absolutely. Like, okay, I could very well sense, like, okay, ThreadFix and the Kodiaks both had worked as
Mm.
a joint initially
Mm-hmm.
for the US government itself.
Okay.
Okay, but eventually the slowing down, right? We separated and then doing our own separate activities. Yes,
Okay.
absolutely. ThreadFix also does. You could very well consider a ThreadFix is a competitor solution to the Kodiaks. But you see what value it brings from the Kodiaks is like, okay, there is you could see like, okay, the machine learning is there, orchestration is there. And then as a synopsis, we have a big platform. Okay, like you could able to take like SaaS solution, IaaS solution, software composition analysis. That entire study is there within the Kodiaks. That's where you see the difference between a synopsis Kodiaks and a point ThreadFix vendor.
No. Yeah. So, and that's a probably very right answer, because Synopsys has been in the market for so long, and it brings a lot of those capabilities together to build a platform, and you get that overall
Correct.
governance out of the effort that you're putting in this particular. So another question in this is, how do you see this code DX? It's an automation tool, or to integrate with the real-time platform? So this is a question. Is this automation tool to integrate with real-time platforms?
Yes, absolutely. Like, okay, I will cover this aspect in this next slide, Vinayak.
Okay. So
Okay.
before that, we go to the next slide, and there is a one question.
Yes,
Um,
please.
uh, so this is very specific to whether you do the C, C++ source code analysis as well.
Okay. Okay. Absolutely. Like, okay, to cover those two things, right? Like, okay, the second question, like, okay, if you do C++ with an open source bundle tool like CPP check, you could very well do the C++ scan also.
Yeah.
But if you look
And
as commercial as exactly coverage solution could able to do much better. Yeah.
okay. And there are definitely some other questions, but one question which will be probably I will be like to take it here is basically is, does this tool give option to write your own correlation rules, or you have to completely rely on a out of box coming from here?
Yes, it provides the customization. You could able to take it. You can own rules as well. I will show you in few minutes. Absolutely.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah. Now, quickly over here, right? Like one of attendee had asked, okay, is this comes in automation? Is this like automated tool, or is it process? This helps you where the code DX fits. The code DX as a solution, right? As part of your build CI/CD, as part of your IDE, as part of your management programs, everything is being in a single pane of glass. That's where our solution is there. Because as part of my CI/CD pipeline, right, which is mainly as an automation, you do SaaS, software composition as IAST and AST. Absolutely do that. Then you could able to get the results into the code DX. The same way, I could able to see the code DX results into my IDE also. As a developer, I could able to review the defects. That is also pretty possible within the code DX. Let me bring up this information quickly, Vinayak. Let me share my Jira instance. Okay, this is my
Yeah.
Jira instance where this is my SIG portfolio, SIG pipeline.
Yeah. Or only thing is we have now 10 minutes left, and there are
Yes,
some 4 or 5 questions as well we want to cover apart from the agenda that you have in mind.
yes, absolutely. Sure, we'll do that. If you see over here, right, like as my SIG pipeline, right, my SIG pipeline contains as part of any pipeline, right, I have as part of my pipeline activity, right, you might have run uh, Coverity or as part of your SaaS solution or software composition analysis. I did everything. Then okay, SaaS to Coverity, software composition Black Duck, IaaS Seeker, and then you see, I did a correlation of all results and then able to do what the last one is the security sign off. Based on my security gate, I could say, okay, this is not passed. This way, you could able to bring the security sign off within the code DX because security sign off could able to say based on the risk, based on the defects, all those things are possible as part of your pipeline activity. That's the first one. And then second one, which is like, okay, as a developer, right? Like, okay, I could able to go to the developer and then I could able to see the code DX findings in my Eclipse, in my Visual Studio. That is pretty well possible. I could able to see my code DX findings, what exactly is that, and I could able to see my where exactly the concern is there at my ID level itself. And you could able to change the status also over here, like you're saying, okay, this has been fixed because at my source code I fixed that, and then it automatically synchronized back to the code DX. And the next version, if it is being still there, it automatically changed to reopen. This way, the developer friction between the AppSec team and the dev team could also be reduced. Okay, this is the one thing you could able to utilize our solution. Okay, now let me
Yeah. So
quickly,
there's a
yes,
small
please.
question is ki this in a way, I mean, there's one question on ki if it the when somebody is coding basically, so can this help to identify the issues in coding while coding and in the CI/CD pipeline? And when we talk about shifting left, so this will also help you in those process, right?
Yeah, if you see over here, right, the CodeDX plugin, right? The CodeDX plugin is just import the results from the CodeDX server to here.
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
does not run the CodeDX scan over here. In my CodeDX server, I have these projects. I just mapped import the results of this project, like the CodeDX project into here. Then you could able to review and then you could able to do whatever triage, whatever fixes over here. But you cannot you cannot trigger a scan from the plugin. It's
Okay.
just a import and then synchronize the triage status between the ID and
Yeah,
CodeDX.
and probably the mechanism you are talking about is a Jira ticket, and through that
Correct.
developer can be impacted, right? So
Both,
that is one.
yes. Both,
Yeah.
yes.
Okay. And then the another question which I'll quickly take it then because I'm not mindful of time basically. So in terms of vulnerability fixing, right, and remediation basically. So
Yes.
so it by itself it will be doing the remediation or it will help remediating that basically.
Okay, like for example, right, like if I have my code DX, right, like as I mentioned, right, this is a finding
Yeah.
for me. You
Yeah.
could able to see the remediation guidance, how
Yeah.
you could able to fix
Yeah.
this
Yeah.
problem.
Yeah.
Okay, that's the one way. And then second way, which is my next topic, is like, okay, you could able to utilize our secure code warrior. Secure code warrior will say, okay, give me a quick bite. How could I fix this vulnerability?
Mhm.
Okay, this is the out of the box integration with the secure code warrior where they could able to tell you, okay, this is a DOM based scripting, how you could able to take it.
Mhm.
Those
Mhm.
remediation guidance also comes from the both Kodiak solution and the secure code warrior.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So there's one question which talks about some maladies will come in runtime as well, right? And how would this tool help you? But you also integrate with RASP, right? And I think the runtime issues can be solved by integrating with RASP kind of solutions, right?
Yeah, when you say the RASP, right, like runtime application security protection, right,
Hmm.
uh, we won't able to capture what type of problems are there at the runtime because our main thing is this is not at the production level. This
Yeah.
is either
Yeah.
the pre-prod or staging or
Yeah.
a QA
Yeah.
machine.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's where we do that.
So then you just take the data of RASP and use that for the future analysis and predictions, basically, right?
We don't have any RASP data
Okay, okay,
because it's a
okay.
runtime application, right?
Yeah,
We don't
yeah,
capture the data.
okay, okay.
Yeah,
So means I think what we are saying is probably the answer to this question somebody is asking is probably this will not help you to solve the runtime issues of
application
application.
security. Yeah,
Okay, yeah,
you cannot protect the application.
yeah,
Protection is different and mitigation is different. We are
yeah,
able
yeah,
to help you to fix all the defects as part of your pre-prod itself.
yeah, yeah.
That's where. Yeah,
I think we discussed this. There are a couple of more questions. So
yeah,
it talks about tools having API support to integrate with third-party environment. We discussed that basically. So you
yes,
have
yes.
connector. Then there is a one question which talks about Uh, so there are a couple of questions which talk about ki how would this help in ransomware. I'm not sure ki whether that is
Okay.
really contextual to
Yeah.
discussion here, basically.
Yeah. The ransomware, right? Like it's out of the scope for here
Yeah, yeah,
it's not meant for ransomware aspects. That's what I could able to tell Vinayak.
yeah. And is the demo version available somewhere where people can log in and see what is happening? Basically, that's the
Absolutely. Like, okay, you have you could very well reach out to us. We are happy to deliver like a deep dive demo, and then we could able to happy to deliver in a quick POC. All those things are pretty possible, Vinayak.
okay. Okay. I
Yeah.
think I cover maximum
Yeah.
of the question which has come. So you can just now go towards the concluding.
Yeah.
I know the questions sometimes
Yes.
interactive, but we have covered almost most of the ground in terms of the questions that people ask. And thanks you all
Absolutely.
for putting those questions here. Actually,
Thank you. Thank you. The
yeah,
last one, which is very, very important to the management, is the centralized dashboard. It gives a single pane of glass what type of activities has been there, security risk. And then you would be able to see like, okay, what is my risk score? You could able to see, okay, my proprietary code has this much score, and then open source components, infrastructure code. You could able to see the entire risk visibility, the percentage level. And then the open findings, how many findings are there in my application, how many defects have been triaged, how many defects are older. All those things are possible within the dashboard. Within that, okay, what type of detection methods have been used? Have you used SAST? Have you used DAST? Have you used surface composition analysis, interactive analysis? Everything you could able to see how many defects has been there. And then you could see average days to resolution, how much time you took a defect to fix, because we have the data. If you have fixed a problem, right, automatically you could able to see it took 20 days, 22 days to fix a high vulnerability. Okay. And then how many defects have been created, how many defects has been resolved, which will help to the management saying, okay, the trending line should be always sloped down. That's where you could able to see that. Then code metrics, based on the changes you have, you could able to notice, okay, these many defects has been increased, and then cyclomatic complexity. All those things that are possible within this one itself. And then you could able to ask a question like, okay, what type of activities has been done in my application? Is it done on daily basis? Is it done on weekly basis? You could able to see the activities also, how frequently we are running. Okay, you could able to ask, okay, hey, did we run these analysis just frequently, or how many tools has been run last 1 week, how many tools had been run. All those things you could able to visualize within the code dx itself. If I bring up a quick thing, right, like, okay, whatever I had shown here, right, that's where you could able to notice a single dashboard from CodeX, which your management could able to take it. Okay. I'd like to quickly poll questions. Maybe like we'll take like 2 minutes.
yeah, yeah,
Ishan, could you just poll the questions, maybe like 30 seconds each? That should be good enough.
yeah. Please go to the poll and answer those poll
Yes.
questions.
Based on your responses, based on your answers, right? Like our marketing team could be able to capture the responses, and then we would be able to identify, and then you will get an FNB voucher or something. We are planning on that. That we will receive that. Ishan, is it done? Vinayak, I hope it's able to pose the poll questions, right?
Yeah, yeah. I think answers are still coming in.
Okay, sure, sure.
Yeah, I think we are done.
Okay,
Ishan, you can confirm whether we are done. Done. Yeah, we are done with the.
okay. Thank you. Okay, that's where like okay, our CodeX solution would able to help you on this. Okay, now overall, right? If you see the synopsis solution, right, you could able to see our synopsis portfolio like intelligent orchestration, execute the right test at the right time using static application security for Coverity, software components for Black Duck, interactive application security seeker, and then you could able to run open source products, and then you can use the fuzzing and the DAS like tinfoil, and then our security testing consulting services like pen testing, threat modeling, red teaming, all those things we do that. And then top of the right, you will see the code DX, all the risk visualization. Quickly, I'll have quickly show you a specific accepts about the Black Duck, which everyone knows there is a log4j vulnerability, which has been
Yeah.
impacted drastically. If you see the Black Duck right,
Yeah.
this is the vulnerability. I have an artifact tree within my Black Duck instance, almost like 700 applications have been scanned. Black Duck will quickly show you, oh, this vulnerability has been impacted on all these applications.
Yeah.
In just 1 minute, if you have a software compositional solution like Black Duck, you would able to get to know quickly saying, okay, hey, this vulnerability has been impacted in all these things. Same thing, you could able to do it from CodeX also. That is also possible, like, okay, within a specific CV and all those things. This is the one of the concern where a lot of our customers asking, okay, calling us and saying, hey, do I know this vulnerability has been impacted in my application, whether I'm using this version, whether I'm using Log4j? Black Duck is a solution would able to tell you these are all the applications are using Log4j, and this specific version has impacted with this vulnerability. That way you could able to see from as a synopsis Black Duck solution. If you see over here, right, like quickly, right, I have two security risks which has been identified on December 10th and December 15th. That way you could able to notice, like you see, right, it has been detected on December 10th. That is the one, and then second one is like yesterday, like December
Yeah.
15th.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think this is really means thank you, Pawan, for means we had been talking about application security, then application security program, and more importantly, the governance of application security, especially in the context that we are into, basically. And thanks for taking us through uh, all those nuances level discussion, and also creating very larger, bigger macro level understanding, and also taking us to the very nuanced level micro understanding as well. And um, uh, to you and to the Synapse team to helping us setting up this workshop, basically, and all the people like Murli, Mr. Ashish, Vishwasara, Shilpa, then Suresh, then Manjeet, all of you asking question, basically. So that also really helped us, Mr. Kaushal especially. So to help us really go this discussion more dialogue based, and also bringing those two-way interactions as well. So we look forward to see you again for such kind of engaging, interacting, and really enriching kind of discussion. And some of your question and your participation in discussion really plays very important role to get discussion going. So this is definitely very important in the context of current digitization that we see in the country, and all those. We had been definitely the capital, world's capital in terms of application development and maintenance. Most of the application across the globe been designed, developed, and delivered, and even maintained out of India, basically. And digitization is bringing a lot of those challenges. Our own unicorns are also now significantly putting effort for very agile and very fast-paced development program, basically. So these kind of workshops would help us understand, okay, how can we keep pace with these larger digitization transformation happening, basically. So thank you, Pawan. Thank you, Synapses team, and all these participants which participated and asked very crucial question to get this discussion going. Thank you once again, and look forward to see you many such interaction in the future as well.
Thank you. Thank you very much for joining this session. Thank you very much for giving an opportunity from AISS also going to the look into the key challenges, how the synopsis solves those problems. Thank you very much for this interaction from synopsis side as well. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.